Arena on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Just like people didn't think it could get worse than Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, and they were wrong. Perhaps the residents of Mogadishu, Minnesota, I think they call it Minneapolis, who think it can't get worse than Jacob Fry will be wrong too. All the focus on Mamdani is directing focus away from this guy, Omar Fattah, a Somali American, apparently, running for mayor there. Here's some of what Omar Fattah has had to say during his time in public office.
We heard them being called terrorists. We heard them being called drug dealers. We heard a lot of insults. We heard that they're a threat to our national security. And that's a flat-out lie. You want to know who the real threat is, Madam President? I'll give you a hint. They don't look like our chief author. They don't look like the folks up in the gallery. They don't look like the folks out in the rotunda. They look like many of the members that sit in the front. And you don't have to take my word for it. According to DHS, Madam President, the greatest domestic threat facing the United States comes from, quote, racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocate for the superiority of the white race, not our immigrants. We are safer and we're better off because of them.
Mm-hmm. He's a member of the State Senate in Minneapolis.
Investing in increasing affordable housing and not gentrifying our neighborhoods. These are all things that are causing harm to our community because of this idea that there isn't money, when in reality, we do have this money to spend on this. It's just that we're choosing not to. It's not a value of ours. So right now, we're blessed to have 3 Somali elected officials at the Capitol. Me, Sister Hodan Hassan, who's in the State House, and Brother Mahmoud Noor. And we work very closely together. And we carry each other's bills. So the way it works is, if there's a bill in the House, it needs an identical bill to be carried in the Senate for it to be negotiated and to pass in the committees, and then go on for the floor session, and then go on to the governor's signature. So we're able to pass our bills back and forth that'll help benefit our communities.
The Somali American Caucus in the Minnesota State Senate and State House, I guess. And when he talks about government housing, as he was talking about there, I mean, it's the same kind of rap that you hear from BLM Brandon in Chicago, who wants to turn the financial district into slums, and now he's got $1 billion to do it. Everybody's focusing on Mamdani in New York, talking about abolishing private property and abolishing prisons. You got mayors in office right now that are way down the road that Mamdani is charting. And maybe Minneapolis is about to have one as well. For more on this and other matters, pleased to be joined by John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you, Dan.
So give us the drop on Senator Fattah.
Well, he represents the far left wing of Minnesota's Democrat Farmer Labor Party, and that's about as far left as you can get. That's a very left-wing party. It's kind of ironic, you know, the city of Minneapolis has been in a downward spiral ever since the George Floyd incident, and really it was started before that. Jacob Fry, the boy mayor of Minneapolis, has served 2 terms. He's running for a 3rd term, which he's eligible to do, and he's considered the sane guy in the race.
The moderate
is the radical. He is running. He's very similar to Mamdani in New York. You know, he's running it both as a Democrat and a Democrat socialist. He's got, you know, socialist or communist schemes that he wants to experiment with in Minneapolis. And if he wins, he's going to take over a city that is in steep decline because the city's tax base is just going up in smoke. The city of Minneapolis is in large part abandoned by business. The commercial properties that are the backbone of the tax base are either wholly empty or largely empty, and so there's a huge movement in process to significantly increase residential property taxes, which are already high. And it could be a death spiral because if those property taxes get much higher, home values are going to plummet. Every prosperous person who lives in Minneapolis is going to sell his house and move to the suburbs, which is easy to do. And it's very hard to see a very optimistic future for that city.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was Jacob Fry the guy featured in pajamas in those Obamacare ads? Because that's who he evokes to me. But anyway, so if Fry or Fatah, it's sort of we're very familiar with sort of the false choice in Chicago and Illinois. Does it make a difference?
Well, it might. I mean, a guy like Fatah is a lot crazier. I mean, Fry isn't stupid. He doesn't want to drive businesses out of the city, and I think he's made some modest efforts to make the city livable. He's not rabidly anti-police, for example, which has been a big part of the problem in Minneapolis. The city council is rabidly anti-police. And I think if Fatah gets in, that's going to be one of the obvious consequences. It's going to be war again on the Minneapolis Police Department, and that could have pretty disastrous consequences.
Wasn't Fry the politician who kneeled at the coffin of George Floyd and wept?
I think he was one of them.
Yeah, right. There's more than one, of course. Good grief. All right. Well, sticking in Minneapolis for just a moment. I wasn't going to get to this, but this is just such a fascinating story. The arrest of another state senator in not another state senator's been arrested, but another state senator, because we were talking about one in Fatah, who is on trial. She got caught breaking into her stepmother's home, and now this is. It's just such a bizarre story. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's a bizarre story and also a revealing one, Dan. So, yeah, Nicole Mitchell is her name. She's a sitting state senator. And this goes back now a year and a half or 2 years. The 2024 session was in progress, and she got in her car and she drove, 3 or 4 hours into northern Minnesota, and she broke into a basement window of her stepmother's home, dressed in black, looking like a cat burglar, carrying a flashlight covered with black cloth, and went up to her stepmother's bedroom. Her stepmother heard something, woke up, got out of bed, tripped over her stepdaughter, had no idea who it was, assumed it was a man. The senator fled down to the basement. The stepmother called 911. They said, grab a butcher knife and prepare to defend yourself. And they called the police. And a couple of minutes later, the police arrive. They search the house and they find Senator Mitchell hiding in the basement, and they arrest her for first-degree burglary as she was about to climb out again with, among other things, her stepmother's laptop. And it's just a completely bizarre story. But maybe the more significant point is that the session was going on right then, and the Democrats had a 44-43, still have a 44-43 advantage in or rather 34-33 advantage in the Minnesota Senate. So they needed her vote. And so they took a vote on whether Mitchell would be allowed to vote for the remainder of the legislative session. And she cast the deciding vote. And it was 34-33 in favor of letting her vote. So she did. As soon as the session was over, then Governor Tim Walz and Ken Martin, who's now the head of the DNC, and the other prominent Democrats all said she's got to resign, she's got to resign. But she didn't. She stuck to her guns, and her case got scheduled for trial. And when the 2025 legislative session was going to come around, the judge continued her criminal trial until after the session would be over, so that she could continue to cast vote time after time in the Minnesota Senate. So when the Senate ended, a week or two went by, and then trial finally got underway, and it's going on right now.
And she broke. I mean, so of course, right. Hang on to political power as long as you can. In the party's interest first, and then in your interest second. I mean, this is classic. We're very familiar with this sort of attitude. But I mean, just the backstory. She broke into her stepmother's home because there were items of her father's that she wanted that her stepmother wouldn't give her. Is that the basis of it?
It's very unclear. She told the arresting officers, and the body cam footage just came out at the beginning of the trial. It's super interesting. But she told the arresting officers that she broke into the house, that her mother suffers from Alzheimer's, supposedly, her stepmother, right? And so she says she broke in to get at some mementos, a couple of photographs and a plaid shirt that had belonged to her now deceased father. At the trial, that her lawyer is telling a different story. Her lawyer is saying that this was really a kind of wellness check.
Oh, really?
That she was checking up on this.
Sure. You dress up like Catwoman to do a wellness check.
Right.
Okay.
And break in the basement window at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the whole story is just crazy. But the overriding story to me is one of political expedience, because once it became clear that she did not want to resign her seat, Tim Walz and the other Democrats stopped calling on her to resign, and they said, "Okay, way to go, Nicole. Serve in that 2025 session." And there was no more talk about expelling her from the Senate or anything else.
Speaking of Tim Walz, some sad news from Tim Walz. He was on with Michelle O's bro, Craig Robinson, on their podcast because, as Barack says, everyone should have a non-binary friend. And Governor Walz announced his plans for 2026.
Things differently. Last two quick questions. First question that people would kill me if I didn't ask. Are you thinking about running in 2028?
I am not. And my job, and I say that, I am doing all I can to help build the party and make sure whoever that person is wins.
Well, we appreciate it.
And I think we need to flood the zone with people.
2026 is the decision on governor. 2028, of course, president. But sad news that Tim Walz isn't leveraging his performance from last year for 2028.
I'm not so sure about that, Dan. We'll see. He apparently is running for a third term as governor in 2026, which he can do. I don't believe he's officially announced, but every other Democrat in the state is running for the open Senate seat, and everybody seems to assume that Walz is going to take another shot at governor. And if he wins, which is not a sure thing, if he wins, then I think it's very possible he throws his hat in the ring for 2028.
Minnesota and Illinois are similar in some respects. Actually, Minnesota, I think, is probably perceived as historically more left than Illinois. But based on your splits in your state legislature, it's actually much more competitive. And of course, you've had Republican governors of recent vintage, like Tim Pawlenty, not that long ago. But what is the prospect? I mean, especially since Walz is such a buffoon. I mean, is there a prospect? Are the numbers there for Tim Walz to be defeated if he runs again?
In principle, yes. His polling is not great right now. He's under 50% approval. A plurality wants him not to run for a third term. The problem, Dan, is that no Republican has won a statewide race in Minnesota since 2006, when Pawlenty was last elected governor.
I guess it has been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and so you got to operate on faith, and more important, you got to come up with a strong candidate. And it remains to be seen who can actually get the Republican nomination for 2026. So in principle, I think Walz is vulnerable. And third terms are hard to get, as you know. I mean, you got to be a very popular governor to run successfully for a third term. So Walz can be had, but I'm not sure whether the Republicans have got the candidate who can do it.
And before we let you go, required by law to weigh in on this, you are. I have, of course, Epstein. And Trump moving off of his position earlier in this week to announce yesterday that Pam Bondi will be in court today to unseal the grand jury testimony related to the Epstein case and ostensibly provide transcripts or redacted transcripts for public consumption. Your assessment of Trump's handling of this matter over the last 10 days?
Well, I think he and Bondi screwed it up, frankly, by vowing that they're going to release the quote Epstein files on the first day. We're going to make them public. You never make public raw, unredacted investigation files. There's all kinds of stuff in them that should not be made public, and I don't think this is any exception. I think Trump was right when he said this is an unfortunate distraction. There's nothing major going on here. The idea is, as Tucker Carlson claimed, that Epstein was an Israeli intelligence asset is completely made up. I mean, that's just really an appalling fabrication on Tucker Carlson's part. I really wish that Trump had stuck to his guns on that and said, look, it's over, it's time to move on, because any partial document release that they do, and it's going to be heavily redacted and so on, I think is only going to feed the frenzy.
Well, right. And now what you've done by saying at the outset, this is all there is and there's no more, and then you say, well, any additional credible information Pam Bondi should release, and then you say, oh, yeah, well, we're going to go and get sealed records unsealed and available for presentation. Well, why didn't you sort of run the traps on all this at the outset and come up with a more thoughtful approach to what you are or not going to do and what you are or not going to release with respect to this, not to mention the explanation, because it required a detailed explanation of the judgment call you're making. And that was absent from this.
I don't know what the legal framework is either, Dan. Isn't grand jury testimony supposed to be secret? I mean, if files have been sealed, what's a legal standard for unsealing them? And I don't know what the law is at the federal level relating to the raw fruits of police or FBI investigations. I mean, I think Trump has embarked down a very dangerous path here in trying to pacify the Epstein conspiracy theorists, and I'm afraid it might not end well.
John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment, contributor to Powerline, powerlineblog.com. John, thanks as always.
Great to be with you, Dan. And
John joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The market for antiques and collectibles is changing all the time. What is your collection worth right now? Well, I've got an easy way to find out. It's simple. You contact Donley Auctions with their worldwide